everyone, good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you might be watching. So this is my Spirit Animal Oracle series. My name is Gia, and happy Earth Day, although every day is Earth Day in my opinion. So if we recall, on April 14th, we pulled the next Spirit Animal Oracle, which was Seahorse. And Seahorse is watching and waiting. Watch and wait. Seahorse, watch and wait. And then on April 18th, we pulled a companion spirit animal for Seahorse, which is Lion Spirit. And Lion Spirit is be generous of spirit. And then on that day when we pulled the companion for Seahorse, two other cards popped out of the deck as I was shuffling. One of them is Butterfly Spirit. Transformation is beautiful. And the other was Bee Spirit. Sweet results await. And so all of these messages together were about watching and waiting as we are nurturing the seeds that we've planted, the seeds of magic that we've planted, those seeds being the new normals, the new definitions of ourselves, the new frameworks, stepping into that as we move further and further into this new Chinese New Year of the Fire Horse and stepping out of last year's Chinese Year of the Snake. So that as we are watching and waiting, we want to be generous of spirit to listen in and pay attention to and action upon all of those intuitive hits that we're getting. We're getting them more and more as the veils are thinning. We're more in tune with our psychic abilities, to be honest, our connection to spirit, our connection to that, sometimes people call it higher consciousness wisdom. I call it expansive consciousness wisdom, that we're able to draw upon, where we are merging that expansive wisdom into our day-to-day lives. So as we utilize that to help discern how we need to care for the seeds that we've planted, how we need to care for ourselves, for our communities, let's not shortchange ourselves as to what it is we need, even if that includes healthy boundaries. So be generous of spirit as we do that. And remember that through it all, transformation is beautiful, because as souls of light, as energetic beings born of light and love, moving through these human experiences, beauty, love, prosperity, abundance, joy, those are all birthrights. Okay, every aspect of our life is beautiful, and every movement through a human existence has the potential to be significantly transformational. But even on a basic level, as we move through our life experiences, we're constantly transforming, shifting, changing, adjusting accordingly. And then Bee Spirit, the message with Bee Spirit along with this is, as we do all these things, as we're watching and waiting and discerning how to care for the seeds of magic that we've planted, as we are being generous of spirit and listening to that higher wisdom, guidance, and knowledge that's coming through us as to how to best care for those seeds, as we remember and recognize the beauty in it all, even before we even see the flower blossom. Every aspect of transformation is beautiful. We will see sweet results. Sweet results await. Sweet results await. And Butterfly and Bee Spirit really wanted to just tag along as the reminders of these things. So don't forget the inherent beauty, and don't forget that it is worth it, that there is, that the expansion, the growth, the transformation is part of that sweet reward, that sweet result. And being courageous about stepping into what feels uncomfortable sometimes as a new normal for us, it's worth it, because we're shedding what doesn't work, right? We don't want to hold on to those definitions that no longer serve us. We don't need to. So we're just adjusting. We're adjusting. And that reminds me, flamingo also, as I was preparing for tonight, flamingo came through again. Flamingo, remember, is embrace the in-between. So as we're waiting, as we're watching and waiting, the in-between of when we've planted that seed and when it's going to actually break through the surface of the earth and start to grow and blossom. So being patient with ourselves, embracing the process, the in-between. All right, so those were the messages. So I'd be happy to share any reflections with you. I'll see if I have a few moments to reflect on that, maybe as I shuffle. So I am returning the cards to the deck because it is time for a new Spirit Animal Oracle today on this beautiful Earth Day, this additional beautiful Earth Day. So, embracing the in-between, watching and waiting. Oh, watching and waiting. So, two cards popped out here. Bat Spirit and Armadillo Spirit. Bat Spirit and Armadillo Spirit. Let's see if these are related to the next two. So is one of these the next Spirit Animal Oracle for the collective? Okay, are both of these? Alright, so the spirit animals are making this really easy for me. The cards are just popping right out of the deck. So these two animals want to work with us now, and I can see why. But I was just getting ready to kind of share reflections. So working with Seahorse as watching and waiting, working with Butterfly, transformation is beautiful, working with Lion, being generous of spirit, and working with the Bee, sweet results await. I definitely, I can definitely sense how, like, you know, I'm working on getting further settled into my new home. And I'm also working on developing different aspects of my business. And so watching and waiting to me is having patience with the process of development of these things, and settling in, like, you know, it's as simple as like ordering new furniture or purging different things for my new home. But it's like having the patience to let things unfold as they need to, relative to the divine plan, and definitely being comfortable and confident in the seeds that have been planted, and just continuing to nurture those seeds and water those seeds. And if I need to add more water, if the soil is getting dry or parched, then I can do that. But just continuing to trust my intuition, my gut feelings and my knowings, and the downloads that I get for guidance and direction from Spirit and my team, my community, as well as my energetic spiritual team of animal oracles and dragons and ancestor guides and ascended masters and all that stuff. So just trusting the process and being patient, and giving myself permission to be uncomfortable, giving myself permission to be uncomfortable and impatient while I'm waiting, giving myself permission to move through whatever emotions arise around it all, being generous of spirit to just continue to listen and pay attention and trust that I'm heading in the right direction, or even being patient with myself when I recognize an opportunity where I need to pivot. So those are my reflections. And be spirit with the sweet results await is that confirmation of like, just keep going, to persevere and keep going and keep trusting. So those are my reflections on that. Again, I'd happy to have you, any of you share those once I get this posted. So just want to tune in and see if there is another card that wants to come through with Bat Spirit and Armadillo Spirit. So I'm actually getting a yes, so I'm just going to go do one more shuffle here. So Bat Spirit is a rebirth is assured. A rebirth is assured from Bat Spirit. That's the message from Bat Spirit. And Armadillo Spirit is about setting healthy boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries. I'm so curious that these want to work in groups lately instead of just one single card, which makes sense, right? You know, we've got a whole collective community of animals and insects and plants and trees and birds, and just, it's all the collective. It's all the collective, and we're a part of that. So there is another spirit animal that wants to come through, and this is Swan Spirit. All right. Swan Spirit, time for a deep dive. Swan Spirit, time for a deep dive. So Swan Spirit and then Bat Spirit, a rebirth is assured. A rebirth is assured. And Armadillo Spirit, set healthy boundaries. So what's coming through is Swan Spirit has actually got the main message here. So time for a deep dive. So what's coming through is on our journeys here, as we've really clearly discerned, what our new narratives are, our new definitions, how we want to express in the world, how we want to move forward in the world, how we want to walk our walk. You hear people say, talk the talk, walk the walk. Well, how we want to walk the walk, we know how we want to do that because we've shed the old ways, right? The old ways that did not align with our true path and purpose. So now that we've identified that, it's time to stop hesitating. It's time to just take that deep dive and go for it. And it doesn't mean go for it to the point of like sacrificing a harmonious balance of things in general. It just means no more excuses, right? Like, we can't go backwards. We're at a point of no return. You can't unknow what you know. When you become aware of certain truths, about life and your path and your purpose, about energetics, about those things that are new truths and new definitions that really are a return to self, a reflection of self, of what's underneath the false narratives, then we can't go back. Why would we want to go back to how things were when we are actually returning to our truest selves? So time for a deep dive deep dive into trust, a deep dive into trust, and trusting every aspect of the process. A deep dive into trust doesn't mean suddenly accelerate. Like, this message came through before in different ways relative to, I think when Horse Spirit came through, the momentum of being in the year of the fire horse doesn't necessarily mean speed. It just means intention. It's the intention. So we just want to go ahead and take that deep dive of trust, trusting our higher selves, trusting that expanded higher consciousness wisdom that we are incorporating into our daily lives. We are merging and meshing and melding that wisdom into ways that work in a manifestation in our day-to-day lives. So it's possible. We're doing it. So we just need to keep trusting that wisdom, those insights that we're getting from Spirit, trust those things, trust that guidance. And as we're doing this, Bat Spirit is here to remind us that a rebirth is assured regardless, right? We're on the path now where we're being reborn into our remembrance. That's the way that's coming through. We're being reborn into our remembrance. We're being reborn into our remembrance as we take a deep dive into trusting how Spirit is guiding and leading us, okay? And Armadillo Spirit is here to remind us that it is absolutely 100% appropriate to set healthy boundaries through this process, because we need to be able to be comfortable and confident and assured. And if we do need to retreat for some self-care, for some TLC, for some self-reflection, that is 100% appropriate. It doesn't mean that we're retreating because we've been defeated. I've mentioned that before. It just means that we are retreating to reassess, to initiate discernment as to what we need to do next, to maybe move through some visceral emotional experiences, to let that run its course and move through us in its natural course, take that natural course of expression. Healthy boundaries, maybe even being related to discerning, okay, this friendship isn't working anymore. This friendship is draining my energy. This friendship is not aligned with how I want to move forward. It's not necessary for me to hold on to. And then let go of it. That's activating a healthy boundary. So those are the messages. Swan Spirit, diving into the remembrance of ourselves as we've let go of and continue to release the residual energy of our old selves. We're diving into the new self. Time for a deep dive. Time for a deep dive. And then just seeing if there's anything else coming through here from these. Yeah, so don't these birds, like they dive their head down into the water to catch their fish and the nourishment of what they're eating, right? So the deep dive into gathering that nourishment. So the deep dive into trusting our spirit. Our spirit knows exactly what we need and is nourishing us in the ways that we need to be nourished when we are able to pay attention and discern and move that guidance into action. So that deep dive, and then once we've got that nourishment, we'll come back up, our head will come back up out of the water in kind of that symbolic sort of rebirth kind of motion. So there we go. A rebirth is assured. A rebirth is assured, especially when we are aligned in this way. And then again, what do we need for ourselves in the way of those healthy boundaries, the TLC, the discernment of the community we surround ourselves with, the support that we surround ourselves with, and how can we adjust accordingly if we recognize opportunities to do so. All right. I think that's it. Thank you so much. Bat Spirit, Swan Spirit, and Armadillo Spirit. It's an interesting trio. Okay. So it's kind of hard to see, but there's some really cool adornment on this armadillo here. And what my awareness was brought to are these rings on armadillo's ear. And that Spirit is saying is just let's move into the still place in ourselves, move into that quiet place within ourselves, whether that's through intentional meditation or a practice that you have in your life already that allows you to get in the zone and get in the flow. Some people like to be out in nature and take nature walks or garden. Some people do cold plunging. Some people do yoga. Some people do somatic practices, sound baths, getting a massage. You know, whatever helps to move you into stillness, to move you into present moment stillness, where you can quiet your mind as best you can to hear and listen what Spirit is bringing to your attention. This is also a mindset that you can move through your daily life with. So, Angela, hi, thanks for joining. So I did show them before, but here's Bat Spirit. Bat Spirit is reassuring us that a rebirth is assured. And the primary message is the Swan Spirit, time for a deep dive. Time for a deep dive. And Armadillo Spirit, setting those healthy boundaries. So the adornment, my awareness was brought to the adornment on Armadillo's ear, and just finding those opportunities to reflect in stillness so that we can get used to how our spirit speaks to us. Sometimes it's different, often it's different with different people. You know, a lot of times for me, I notice lately, as I'm waking up in the morning, I'll get downloads or information, or I'll get an inspired thought, or I'll get what I call guidance or a download from my spirit, just encouraging me to either think about something or write my dream down or make sure I remember to do a particular thing, or sometimes in those, it's like that time in between when I'm not fully awake but I'm not quite asleep. So that's sometimes when I get those downloads. So, all right. Swan Spirit, Armadillo Spirit, and Bat Spirit would like to work with us as a collective as we take the deeper dive into trusting our knowing, trusting our spirit, trusting our awareness, and guidance that we get from our higher consciousness, expansive wisdom, and using our discernment to set those healthy boundaries as needed, and being reassured from Bat Spirit that, as we take that deep dive and gather that nourishment, that information from Spirit, as we trust that it's there and we go deep down to get it, we will come up in a rebirthing kind of a scenario, metaphor. And this is all kind of, again, kind of following up in a really nice way is to the messages that came through with seahorse, butterfly, lion, and bee spirit. Like we're moving further and further into the point of no return, so to speak, relative to our remembrance, the return to remembrance of who we truly are and how we truly want to express in the world, how we want to sing our song, and what is that song? Figure out what is that song. All right, so let's see how long the three of these beautiful animals would like to spend with us. So I'm getting 7 days. They would like to spend the next 7 days with us. So next week on Wednesday, we will pull another card. I feel like there's something else that's going to want to come through during the middle of the week. Is that right? I don't know. So 7 days, they'd love to be invited to join us on our journeys. So that's Swan Spirit, time for a deep dive, Armadillo Spirit, setting healthy boundaries, and Bat Spirit, a rebirth is assured. Alright, so I'll keep listening. I'll keep listening and trusting and tuning in to see if there's something else that wants to come through in the middle of the week. Oh, thank you for clarifying. So Swan Spirit is, what I was picking up on is from Swan Spirit. So this is Wednesday. So round about Saturday, Sunday, Swan Spirit, between now, Saturday, Sunday, Swan Spirit really wants us to think about, and maybe even this could be literally writing it down, but think about what are the things that already exist in our lives that act as those compasses for us to kind of return us back to a still point, calms us down, helps us to feel grounded. You know, what are the things that you like to do? Maybe it's listening to music and dancing. Maybe it's singing. Maybe it's, like I was saying before, a walk in nature, or swimming, or gardening, creating artwork. What are the things that help us feel like ourselves, help us feel grounded in ourselves, and start from there in terms of see if we can challenge our awareness as we're moving through those activities to recognize any kind of sense of being able to quiet the mind while we're doing those activities. I know that sounds kind of counterproductive, because how do you quiet your mind while you're actually doing an activity? But the example that's coming to me to share is when I went to art school, I took a class that taught us how to weld steel. It was so cool, very empowering. You know, put on a jumpsuit and everything, the big helmet mask, and you know, I don't even remember what the things are called anymore, the tools are called anymore, because the welding flame and I don't remember what those are called. It was a while ago. But I remember we could go and use the welding studio in blocks of time of like 3 or 4 hours at a time. And I remember this one particular day. I remember it well because it was really kind of surreal in a way. I went in and I was working on something, and I was just so focused in it, you know, and my mind was active because I was actively thinking about what I was doing and doing what I was doing. But there was a part of my being that felt still. It felt calm. It felt grounded in that flow, in that I was in the zone. I was in that creative zone. We all have access to that creative energy, creative expression of energy. And so all of a sudden, it seemed like I hadn't even been in there for 5 or 10 minutes. Like I knew there was a period of time that had gone by, but then the shop attendant was like tapping me on the shoulder saying, it's time to, time to tap out of the ring. We're gonna, close up shop for a second. And it was crazy because it just seemed like time sped up, went by really quickly, but also in the moment, it seemed like it was going slow. And then so I step out of the studio and then I'm coming back to like thinking about the rest of my day. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm kind of hungry. And actually, oh my goodness, I need to pee. Like I gotta go to the bathroom. And so all of a sudden it's like I came back into my body, so to speak, into my real world, so to speak. It's like being in the studio in that zone, in that creative zone, was like stepping outside of myself in a way. So that's the kind of stillness, that's the kind of quiet calm of a presence in our energy that I'm talking about. When you think about those things that you may have in your life that bring you to that point or help you get close to that point. And again, it could be obviously literal meditation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So Swan Spirit wants us to use that as a starting point for trusting, diving into the trust from that still point, from that practice, that activity that you already have in your life, and see if there's ways that you can do more of it, or just shift your awareness slightly so that you're really challenging yourself to open your ears a little more to what your spirit might be sharing with you in those times. And it might not even necessarily be like direct guidance that you need to action upon. It could simply also be affirming, sharing affirming information, or, celebrating you. Our spirit does that as well. They can give us messages of celebration and affirmation, and maybe they just want you to pause to celebrate yourself. So, all right. So focusing on today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe even into Sunday, think about those activities and really try to do those with intention and carve out the time and create the time to do those things. And then kind of layer in the messages of a rebirth is assured with Bat Spirit, and remembering to set the healthy boundaries with Armadillo Spirit. So Armadillo Spirit actually is in the background with Swan as we dive in deep to the trust. Don't forget that it's okay to set those healthy boundaries to help you settle into that. For example, there may be an activity that you usually promise to do with friends, and like maybe this is a time that you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to bow out of that this time. I need to do some reflection, or I need to do something different for now. And then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Bat Spirit wants to come more to the forefront of this journey this week, reminding us that as we do these things, we're continuing to lay the foundation and the groundwork for the rebirth, for the blossoming of the flower, of the seeds that we've planted from the other messages from Seahorse and Butterfly and Lion and Bee Spirit. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate your time. Until next time.